In the ever-evolving world of mixed martial arts, few words have become as loaded and controversial as ducking. Once a term reserved for the most blatant cases of fighters avoiding dangerous opponents, it has now become a catchphrase, a meme, and a weapon wielded by fans, media, and even fighters themselves. In today's UFC, it seems like every week someone is being accused of ducking, whether it's Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall, Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria, or legendary matchups that never materialized. But what does ducking really mean? Why has it become such a hot topic? And is it always as simple as it seems? This script will take you deep into the heart of the UFC's ducking culture. We'll explore what ducking really means, why it happens, how it's changed over the years, and what it says about the sport, the fighters, and the fans. We'll look at the psychology behind avoiding certain fights, the business incentives, the role of promoters, and the impact of social media. We'll revisit some of the most famous ducking accusations in UFC history, analyze the facts, and separate myth from reality. Most importantly, we'll discuss what can be done to make matchmaking more transparent, fair, and exciting for everyone who loves MMA. The rise of the duck accusation in modern MMA. The term ducking has become so common in MMA discourse that it has almost lost its meaning. Scroll through any MMA forum, Twitter thread, or YouTube comment section, and you'll see fans accusing top fighters of ducking their rivals. Jon Jones is ducking Tom Aspinall, Islam Makhachev is ducking Ilia Topuria. The list goes on. But how did we get here? Why has the idea of ducking become so central to the way we talk about the UFC? Part of the answer lies in the impatience of modern fans. In the age of instant gratification, people want big fights now. They don't want to wait for negotiations, injuries to heal, or for the right timing. If a fight doesn't happen immediately, someone must be ducking. This impatience, combined with the power of social media, has made ducking one of the most popular and controversial terms in the UFC today. But who's really ducking? Is Jon Jones running from Tom Aspinall? Is Islam Makhachev avoiding Ilia Topuria? Or is the truth more complicated? To answer these questions, we need to dive into the history, the drama, and the reality behind the UFC's biggest duck accusations. What does ducking really mean in MMA? Before we can analyze who's ducking whom, we need to define what ducking actually means in the context of mixed martial arts. In its purest form, ducking is when a fighter deliberately avoids a tough opponent, usually a top contender who could ruin their record, title, or legacy. It's not just about missing a fight due to injury or scheduling conflicts. It's about sidestepping someone who poses a real threat. But the reality is rarely that simple. Fighters have careers to manage, families to support, and legacies to protect. The UFC is their job, and they know it's not always wise to go against what fans want. But at the same time, they have to ask themselves, what's in it for me? If there's no big money, no legacy boost, why would they risk their health, legacy, or time for nothing? This is the fundamental question at the heart of every ducking accusation. The business of ducking, risk, reward, and career management. To understand why fighters might avoid certain matchups, we need to look at the business side of MMA. Every fight is a risk of injury, of losing momentum, of damaging one's brand. For champions, the risk is even higher. One loss can mean the end of a title reign, a drop in pay, and a hit to their legacy. Fighters and their managers weigh every decision carefully. Is the opponent a big enough name? Is the payday worth the risk? Will a win move them closer to superstardom? Or is it a lose-lose situation? Sometimes, the answer is to wait, negotiate, or even walk away. Fans may see this as ducking, but from the fighter's perspective, it's often just smart business. This is not unique to MMA. In boxing, for example, Floyd Mayweather was accused for years of avoiding Manny Pacquiao. They finally fought in 2015, but many fans claimed Pacquiao was past his prime. If you ask Floyd, he'd probably say, "Why would I risk my legacy for less money when I can wait, take less risk, and make more?" Many fighters accused of ducking likely follow this logic. Why choose a riskier fight when a better option exists? At the end of the day, fighters, like all humans, want what's best for themselves. Historical ducking accusations in the UFC. Let us look at some of the most famous ducking accusations in UFC history to see how this plays out. GSP vs. Anderson Silva. From 2010 to 2012, Georges St. Pierre ruled the welterweight division, while Anderson Silva was untouchable at middleweight. Fans begged for a super fight between the two. Silva even offered to drop to 170 pounds, but GSP said the size gap was too much. Dana White was annoyed, saying GSP wasn't stepping up. But GSP's camp argued he was smart, focusing on his division. Years later, GSP explained that he was on a tear in his own division, fighting top contenders nonstop. He was willing to fight Silva at a catchweight with enhanced drug testing, but the UFC didn't want to make a special contract. In the end, both sides blamed each other, and the fight never happened. Was GSP ducking Silva, or was he just protecting his legacy and negotiating for fair terms? Conor McGregor vs. Frankie Edgar. In 2015, Conor McGregor won the featherweight belt, and Frankie Edgar, a former champ, was the clear next contender. But Conor jumped to lightweight for big money fights with Nate Diaz and Eddie Alvarez, leaving Edgar hanging. Edgar said he was promised a shot, and Dana White confirmed it. Conor's fans argued he was chasing bigger paydays, and Edgar's later loss to Aldo hurt his case. Still, it felt like star power trumped merit. Was Conor ducking Edgar, or just making smart business moves? Jon Jones vs. Francis Ngannou. From 2019 to 2021, Francis Ngannou was a wrecking ball in the heavyweight division, knocking out everyone in his path. Fans were desperate for Jon Jones, the light heavyweight GOAT, to move up and face him. Francis called him out, but Jones went quiet, citing injuries and contract disputes. Dana White claimed Jones was scared to fight Francis, while Jones fired back, saying he wanted to get paid what he was worth. In the end, the fight never happened, and both sides blamed each other. Was Jones ducking Ngannou, or was it just a matter of business and timing? Modern ducking accusations. Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall, Islam Makhachev, and Ilia Topuria. Today, the ducking narrative is alive and well. The most talked about cases involve Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall, and Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria. Jon Jones vs. Tom Aspinall. Jones, the heavyweight champ, won the belt in 2023 by choking out Cyril Gane in under 3 minutes. He defended it in November 2024, retiring Stipe Miocic with a third-round TKO at UFC 309. Aspinall, the interim champ, claimed his belt in 2023 with a first-round knockout of Sergey Pavlovich and defended it against Curtis Blades in July 2024, avenging his only UFC loss. Aspinall has been begging for a unification fight, but Jones keeps shutting it down. He says Aspinall hasn't beaten anyone elite, demands a big payday, and talks about fighting Alex Pereira or retiring. There are 3 main theories to explain Jones's behavior regarding Aspinall. First, Jones is playing the game. By ducking Aspinall, he creates hype, drives up demand, and ensures a bigger payday when the fight finally happens. Second, Jones's ego is at play. He knows Aspinall is a dangerous fight and could ruin his legacy. Third, maybe Jones genuinely believes fighting Pereira makes more sense than facing Aspinall. Whatever the reason, the ducking narrative persists. Islam Makhachev vs. Ilia Topuria. Dana White announced that Islam would move up to welterweight to fight Jack Della Maddalena for the welterweight title, while Ilia would face Charles Oliveira for the vacant lightweight title. However, Islam was forced to vacate his lightweight belt Despite saying he wouldn't, Ilya vacated his featherweight belt because he had no intention of fighting in that division again. Why was Islam forced to vacate his belt? He said he'd be willing to fight the winner of Oliveira versus Ilya. For those calling Islam a duck, consider this. Ilya vacated his belt and now wants to fight Islam for the lightweight title. That's a big opportunity for him. Islam, on the other hand, has two options: defend his lightweight belt for the 5th time against Ilya, or move up to welterweight for a chance to become a double champion. Why would Islam choose the less rewarding option? When fighters have options, they choose the one that's best for them, not the worst one. The role of the UFC: matchmaking, promotion, and power. The UFC itself plays a huge role in how fights are made or not made. Unlike boxing, where multiple promoters and sanctioning bodies can make matchmaking a nightmare, the UFC has near total control over its roster. This means the company can push for certain fights, delay others, and use its promotional power to shape narratives. Sometimes, the UFC wants a particular fight to happen, but one or both fighters aren't interested. Other times, the company itself may not want to risk a star losing, or may prefer to build up a matchup for a bigger payday down the line. The result is a complex dance of negotiation, public pressure, and behind-the-scenes deals. The impact of social media and fan culture. Social media has changed the way fights are made and promoted. Fighters now have direct access to fans, and fans have direct access to fighters. Accusations of ducking can go viral in minutes. Fighters call each other out, fans take sides, and the media amplifies every rumor. Sometimes, the pressure works. Fights get made because the demand is too great to ignore. Other times, the noise just adds to the confusion. The rise of clout chasing and money fights has also changed the game. Fighters are more aware than ever of their value, and are willing to wait for the right opportunity. This can lead to frustration for fans, but it's a reality of the modern fight business. The psychology of ducking: fear, ego, and legacy at its core. Ducking about fear of losing, fear of injury, fear of damaging one's legacy. But it's also about ego. Fighters are some of the most competitive people on the planet. They want to be the best, but they also want to be remembered as the best. Sometimes, that means avoiding fights that could tarnish their reputation. But not all ducking about fear. Sometimes, it's about strategy. Fighters and their teams are constantly weighing the risks and rewards of every matchup. Is it better to take a dangerous fight now, or wait for a bigger opportunity? Is it worth risking everything for a fight that doesn't move the needle? These are the questions that every fighter must answer. The fan perspective: why ducking bothers us so much. For fans, ducking feels like a betrayal. MMA is supposed to be about the best fighting the best, with no excuses. When a big fight doesn't happen, it's easy to blame the fighters, the UFC, or both. But the truth is, the sport is more complicated than that. Fighters have short careers, and every decision matters. Still, the desire to see the best matchups will always drive fan passion and criticism. Solutions: how to make matchmaking better for everyone. So, what can be done? The UFC could make matchmaking more transparent, with clear rankings and mandatory title defenses. Fighters could be more honest about their reasons for turning down fights. The media could focus on facts, not just rumors. And fans could remember that fighters are human beings, not just characters in a drama. Ultimately, the best solution is for everyone: fighters, promoters, and fans to work together to keep the sport exciting, fair, and true to its roots. Conclusion: the future of ducking in the UFC. Ducking will always be part of combat sports, but it doesn't have to define the UFC. By understanding the reasons behind it, and working to make matchmaking better, we can keep the focus where it belongs, on the fights, the athletes, and the moments that make MMA great.